Blood-streaked boots echoed across the altar wood like war drums, each step cracking the silence inside the chapel. The doors had slammed open only seconds ago, but already the room had turned to stone. Every eye froze. The bounty hunter didn't speak. He dragged the man by the collar, body limp, one leg dragging wrong. His blood made a trail down the aisle, a dark ribbon soaking into the wood. Someone in the pews gagged. He dropped the man at the base of the altar. The body made a dull, wet sound. No prayers followed. From the balcony above, she didn't move. Mourning veil over her eyes, her boots tucked against the rail. The sheriff's daughter hadn't come for worship. She'd come to watch. The preacher started to rise. "This is a house of—" "Sit down," the bounty hunter said. He did. The bounty hunter reached into his coat, pulled out a folded paper, tossed it on the body's chest. It was soaked by the time it landed. "That's your proof," he said. Someone whispered, "Is he dead?" "Not yet." Another voice near the back, "Why bring him here?" "Because your jail's full of cowards." No one argued. The man on the floor groaned. His shirt was torn open, stomach caved where a boot had landed more than once. His mouth moved, but no words came. "Who is he?" a woman asked. The bounty hunter turned. "Name's Tarlin, rode with the sheriff. Took bribes, took girls." His eyes lifted, slow and hard. "Maybe take your daughters too." Chairs scraped back. A boy ran out. No one chased him. The preacher looked at the girl in black. She hadn't flinched. "He can't bleed out here." "Why not?" she said. Her voice didn't shake. It hadn't since the funeral. The bounty hunter crouched by the man. Tarlin twitched when he leaned in. "You still have breath. You can talk." Tarlin moaned. "Didn't mean to." "Say it louder." "Didn't mean to hurt her." "You did." She begged. The bounty hunter stood. His face didn't change. Just looked back at the preacher. "You want him gone. Carry him out yourself." The preacher didn't move. From the corner pew, a widow whispered, "He was in my house last summer." The bounty hunter nodded once. "He won't be again." "You gonna kill him here?" someone asked. "Number, that's not my job." "Then whose is it?" He looked up at the balcony. Maybe hers. Eyes turned. The girl didn't blink. "You think I won't?" "You look like your father." "But it's colder." "He's on the ground." "I know." Down below, Tarlin coughed blood. The preacher finally moved, pulling a cloth from the pulpit, pressing it to the man's chest. "We need to stop this," he said. "No," the girl said. "Let it finish." The preacher stared up at her. "This is your church." "It was my father's. He used it wrong." The bounty hunter leaned on the altar like it was just a post. "In the street. I'm not here for vengeance. I'm here for the truth." The preacher frowned. "Then why now?" "Because she buried him last week." Someone gasped. The girl's hands clenched on the rail. A woman in the back rose slowly. "I saw her father take bribes. I saw him laugh when my boy went missing." Another voice joined. "My sister begged for help. He turned her away." The room shifted, like breath coming back. The bounty hunter pushed off the altar. "This town's been bleeding longer than he has." Tarlon whimpered. "Please." "You're not dead yet," the bounty hunter said. "But you will be." He walked down the aisle without looking back. People parted like old wheat before harvest. The preacher called after him, voice cracking, "Where will you go?" "Where the silence is loudest." He stepped through the chapel doors. Sunlight hit his face. He didn't squint. The girl remained still. A minute passed, then two. She stepped back from the rail, veil lifting with her motion. The morning dress brushed her knees as she turned. Bootsteps on the stairs, each one louder than the last. People didn't speak, just watched. She reached the floor. I walked past the pews, past the preacher, past the body still twitching at the altar. She didn't look down. At the door, the bounty hunter waited. Her hand reached for the frame. Paused. He looked over. "What do you want?" he asked. She didn't answer. He nodded once, started to leave. Then her voice came, steady and sharp. "What's your name?" He stopped. The wind caught her veil. It fluttered past her shoulder like a breath. He turned just enough to speak. "Does it matter?" "It might." A silence fell again. He looked at her like a man checking the edge of a blade. "Call me the reason your father's gone," he said, "or the one who stayed when no one else did." "That's not a name." "Number, but it's true." She stepped through the door and into the light. The church bell rang once, not for prayer, not for warning, just sound. She stared at the trail of blood on the steps. "Come inside," she said. He didn't move. "I asked your name." This time he gave it to me. She didn't repeat it. She just nodded once and left the door open. She didn't wait for permission, just turned from the door and walked back in, veil trailing behind her, steps clean, despite the blood smeared across the threshold. The bounty hunter followed, slow and quiet, as if testing the walls for ghosts. Inside, the church had emptied fast. Only the preacher remained, sitting stiff on the front pew with his hands folded wrong, like he forgot what prayer felt like. She said nothing to the preacher, didn't spare him a glance, just passed him like furniture and walked to the side door that led out back toward the stables. The bounty hunter followed, his boots crunching over dried leaves. That shouldn't have been there. She pushed open the stable door. The air smelled of old hay and horse sweat. "Upstairs," she said. He looked past her. "Not jail?" "No." "You think I don't deserve it?" "I think they want you dead more than locked up. Jail's too close to the door." He didn't smile. "Smart girl." She turned her back. "Sleep light. If they come, they'll come quiet." The stairs groaned under his weight. At the top was a loft, half clean, half forgotten, a cot, a trunk, a wall that didn't quite close. He threw his coat on the cot and sat. She stayed below, hand on the stable door, not watching him, not leaving either. "You trust me?" he asked. "No." "Then why let me stay?" She looked up then. "Because I don't trust the new sheriff either." His mouth twitched. Good answer. She closed the door and left him there in the hay and dark. That night, the town didn't sleep. Voices moved through windows like smoke. "He killed a deputy." "He dragged a man through the Lord's house." "She's letting him stay." "She's her father's daughter, that one. Always had eyes colder than frost." No one knocked. No one dared. But the word spread like brush fire anyway. The girl sat at the kitchen table, the lantern burning low. She hadn't taken off the black dress. Her tea went cold. On the wall behind her, the clock ticked like something counting down. She pulled her father's jacket from the hook, heavy, lined with something thick. She hadn't worn it since the burial. She reached into the inner pocket. Fingers touched paper. She pulled it out. A photo. Blood smeared across one corner. Not her father's blood. The man in the photo stood tall, shoulders back, face blurred just enough to stay hidden, but the eyes were sharp, and behind him, barely visible, a house with a broken cross above the door. She stared. I turned the photo over, nothing written, just red. Above the stable, the bounty hunter lit a stub of a cigarette and watched smoke crawl toward the beams. He wasn't used to staying. He didn't trust walls, especially not ones that had names carved in the wood. He ran his hand over one. Old, nearly rubbed out. RL1892, another beside it. MAYBEL, another, half scratched out. TRUSTNO. He looked out of the window. The church steeple still stood. The blood on the altar floor had dried brown by now. He wondered if the man had lived. It didn't matter much. Dead or not, they'd come for him. They always did. Downstairs, the girl stood by the fire. She held the photo with the blood on it and didn't blink. It was the same house her mother disappeared in. The cross above the door. She remembered it from stories, from warnings. Her father said it was burned down years ago. Said it never existed. But there it was, behind a man she'd never seen, standing like he owned the silence around him. She folded the photo, slid it back into the jacket. Then she opened the trunk her father kept locked. Inside, just paper, receipts, lists, one old revolver, and something heavier, wrapped in cloth. She unwrapped it. A badge. Not his. The initials on the back weren't his either. She stared. Her father always said there was only one sheriff in town, but this badge had rust on the edges and blood beneath the pin. She ran her thumb across the metal, her mouth pressed into a line. No tears, just the sound of the fire crackling, and outside, the faint creak of boots on loft boards above the stable. He wasn't sleeping either. She slipped the badge into her coat pocket, picked up the revolver, and stepped outside. She stood still in the doorway, the photo pressed tight in one hand, the badge cold in the other. The fire inside flickered, caught in the wind, then settled. Her boots didn't move. Neither did her breath. The barn creaked behind her. The stable loft remained silent. She stepped back in, closed the door soft, and set the revolver on the table like it had a name. The badge went beside it. She didn't look at either, just crossed to the old desk. Her father's. The chair still leaned to the left from his weight. She sat, pulled open the middle drawer, empty. Then the side, a map, folded, corners brittle, the names of nearby homesteads inked in her father's scratch. But that wasn't what caught her eye. At the bottom of the drawer, under the false panel she'd once found a whiskey bottle beneath, was a groove in the wood. She pressed her finger there. The desk creaked, then clicked. She leaned in, carved into the underside, nearly invisible unless you knew to look. Names, dozens, in a hand rougher than pen. Howard, 20 Mrs. E, 15 Cobbler's Boy, 5 Preacher, 30 Widow R, 10. No dates, just names, just amounts, etched like scars. She read them twice, then again. The bounty hunter's voice came from behind her. "That's not ink." She didn't turn. "I know." He stepped closer, his shadow stretching across the desk. He kept it close, didn't trust the paper. Smart man. He didn't answer that. She tapped the wood. "Do you recognize any?" "I recognize all." She finally looked at him. "Then say what you came to say." He nodded once. "Your father sold protection, took what he wanted, told the town it was law." She didn't flinch. "You think I didn't know? I think you buried him anyway." "He was still mine." Silence. Then she added, "But he wasn't a hero, just the loudest man in a quiet place." The bounty hunter leaned on the frame, eyes scanning the floor. "Sometimes loud is enough." "Not anymore." Her hand hovered over the badge. "Have you ever worn one?" "Briefly." "Why'd you stop?" He looked at her like the question had thorns. "I didn't like the, price." "There's always a price." He nodded. "That's what scares me about you." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I don't scare easily." "Number, but you're honestly scared." She stood, walked past him to the window, peeled back the curtain. The street was quiet, too quiet. One lantern still burned outside the feed store, but no footsteps, no voices. "They're watching," she said. "Of course they are." "You killed a deputy." He nodded. "He would have killed me first. And the one you dragged into church. Still breathing, last I checked. And if he's not." The bounty hunter didn't blink. "Then I'm late." She let the curtain fall. The photo was still on the table, folded and blood-specked. "You know the house?" she asked. He walked over. I looked at it. "Yeah." "Where is it?" "North Ridge. What's left of it?" She looked at him. "Take me." He shook his head. "Too fast. Too dangerous." "You think I can't handle it?" "I think you already are." She grabbed the revolver, slid it into her coat. "Then I'll go alone." He stepped into her path. "That place eats people. So did this town." Their eyes locked, his first, then hers. Outside, a wind kicked up, the kind that carried dust through gaps in windows. She moved to the door. He didn't stop her, but before she could touch the latch, a knock, 3 short raps, then silence. She froze. He tensed. The knock came again. Firmer, a voice behind it, low and calm. "You're not supposed to be here." The knock didn't come again. The girl's hand hovered at the latch. The bounty hunter stepped beside her, head tilted, body still. She could feel his breath tighten. "Step back," he whispered. She didn't. From the other side, the voice called again. "We know he's in there. He ain't yours to keep." She glanced at him. He said nothing. A second voice, meaner, younger. "We ain't asking twice." "They're deputies," she murmured. "They're dogs," he said. "New collars, same teeth." She opened the door fast. 2 men stood there, both with dust on their boots and metal on their chests. The stars were polished anew. Their faces weren't. She knew both. Curtis Hammond, her father's hunting partner, always laughed too hard, always stayed too late. Evan Rudd once had a girl her age, left town the day she vanished. Curtis tipped his hat. "Evening, miss. The sheriff says we got a prisoner here." "He's not in jail," she said. Evan smirked. "That's the problem." The bounty hunter stepped into view. Curtis spat. "You're done running." "Not running," the bounty hunter said. "Standing." Evan's hand twitched toward his belt. "We can do this easy." "Have you ever done anything easy?" The girl cut in. Evan flinched. Curtis looked at her. "You gonna, let us do our job." She looked him dead in the eyes. "Depends what job that is." He didn't smile. "Same one your daddy had." "Then no." Curtis reached for her arm. The bounty hunter moved first. The door slammed open. Curtis stumbled back. Evan grabbed his pistol. She screamed. The gun came up, too slow. The bounty hunter knocked Evan's wrist sideways. The shot fired wide. Curtis lunged. They crashed into the barn wall. Wood splintered. The girl ducked as hay rained from the loft above. A lantern swung, casting shadows like claws. Curtis slammed the bounty hunter's head against a beam. Twice. The girl scrambled for the revolver. Evan kicked at her. She fired. Missed. Evan grabbed her arm, twisted hard. She screamed. The bounty hunter roared. Curtis hit him again. The bounty hunter dropped. Evan shoved the girl back. "You're next." She raised the gun again, both hands shaking. "Shoot me," Evan said. She didn't. Curtis turned. "Don't waste time." The bounty hunter rose. Fast. Curtis turned too late. One punch. Bone cracked. Curtis fell. Evan froze. "You don't have to die here," the bounty hunter said. Evan dropped the gun. Ran. Boots scraping dirt, echoing off barn walls. Gone. Silence. The girl still held the revolver, still pointed, still shaking. "You didn't shoot," he said. "I almost did. But you didn't." "I wanted to." He knelt beside Curtis. Checked the pulse. Nothing. "Dead," she whispered. He nodded once. She sat down in the hay, slow, like her legs gave out. The gun slipped from her hand. He didn't go to her. She didn't ask him to. "Would you have shot him?" she asked. "Which one?" "Evan." "Yeah, even if I hadn't. Especially if you hadn't." She looked up, eyes wide, wet. "Would you kill me?" He didn't answer right away, just stood over Curtis's body, blood dripping from his knuckles. The barn smelled like sweat, fear, old wood and copper. Finally, he said, "You already know I would." She looked down at her hands, still shaking, still clenched, still stained. "You didn't flinch," he said. "I think I did." Number U just waited. She pulled her knees to her chest, voice small. "I didn't shoot. I could have. I should have. But I didn't." He crouched beside her. "You didn't want to kill someone. That's not a weakness." "I didn't want to let you." "You didn't." She looked at Curtis's body. "I used to eat dinner with that man." He said nothing. "He bought me a doll once, when I was 5. Still nothing. Why does it feel like I should cry?" He shook his head. "Because you still think grief makes you good. And it doesn't. It just means you're still carrying something." She wiped her face with the heel of her palm. "Will Evan come back?" Not for a while. "And when he does, we'll be ready." She looked at him, software small, frightened. "Would you kill me again?" He nodded once. Without asking, he nodded again. She let out a breath like she'd been holding it her whole life. And in the dark hay of her father's barn, beside a man who'd already killed and another who never would again, she asked one more question. "Would you die for me too?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. She didn't repeat the question, didn't press him, just let the quiet settle between them, heavy and private. The barn had gone still again, the smell of blood beginning to sour. Curtis's body hadn't moved, neither had she, but her fingers had stopped shaking. That was something. The bounty hunter rose first, brushed hay off his coat, then offered a hand. She took it. "We need to move him," she said. He nodded. "Not far." They carried Curtis out before the sun touched the ridge, wrapped him in a feed tarp, left him behind the tool shed, where the earth was already soft from the storm last week. No prayer, no stone, just dirt and silence. She washed her hands in the horse trough. Cold, rust-stained. The water ran red before it cleared. Then she turned toward the smokehouse. He followed her gaze. "Where are you going?" She nodded. "He told me never to walk behind it." "Your father?" "Always." He tilted his head. "And now I want to know why." The path behind the smokehouse was overgrown. Vines curled through the fence. The ground dipped slightly, like something had sunken years ago and no one cared to fill it back. She carried the shovel. He didn't offer to take it. They stopped where the grass thinned and the earth went soft. She pointed. "Here." He looked at her. "How do you know?" "I just do." She pressed the blade into the dirt. It sank easily. The bounty hunter stood back, watched, didn't say a word. She dug slowly at first, then faster, 1 foot, 2. The earth gave off a smell the deeper she went. Damp, sweet, wrong. She hit something. Wood. Number leather. She cleared around it with her hands. I pulled it free. A boot. Child-sized. Laces still tied. She didn't stop. Next came clothes. Lace. She sat back, breath caught. White fabric, yellowed with age, pulled from the soil like skin. A train of a dress, hem torn. She didn't speak. The bounty hunter moved beside her, knelt, helped lift the rest. A wedding dress. She ran her hands over the stitching. "My mother's," she said. "You're sure?" "She made it herself." She kept digging. Bone. A rib. Another. He moved fast then, helped her widen the hole. They found more. A spine. A jaw. Small fingers. No coffin. Just a shallow grave wrapped in bridal cloth. She didn't cry. Not yet. He pulled something from the dirt. A ring. Still on the last joint of a finger. Silver band. The stone is long gone. He held it out to her. She stared. "I remember it," she whispered. "She used to wear it when she brushed my hair." He dropped it in her palm. She closed her fist. "I asked my father once where she went." "What did he say?" "She ran. Couldn't handle it." "And you believed him?" "I wanted to." They sat there for a while, just breathing, just remembering. "You think he did it himself?" she asked. "No." "Then who?" He looked at the bones. "Does it matter?" "It does to me." He nodded. She stood, picked up the dress, carried it inside like it still had weight. Back in the kitchen, she spread it across the table. Dirt flaked off in soft clumps. The lace caught on splinters. She stared at it like it might breathe again. Then she pulled her father's jacket from the hook, opened the inside pocket, took out the photo, the house, the man, the cross. She struck a match, hold it under the corner. The flame climbed slowly at first, then caught. The image curled, blackened. She let it fall into the basin. I watched it turn to ash. The dress stayed on the table, still smelling of earth and something older. She lit another match, hold it over the hem, then stopped. The bounty hunter spoke softly behind her. "You sure?" "No." She blew the match out. "Not yet." He nodded once. "Tomorrow," she said, and walked out of the room with the ring still clutched in her hand. The fire in the basin still burned when morning came. The ash from the photo floated like an old breath above the coals. She hadn't moved all night, just sat at the table, the wedding dress folded beside her, the ring cupped in her palm like a promise she didn't understand. The bounty hunter slept in the loft again, but lightly, like the floor might betray him. Before sunrise, he was up, boots on, knife sharpened. The barn door creaked once. She was already outside, staring at the gallows across the field. He stepped beside her. "You always wake up early." "Not before he died." He didn't ask who she meant. The question didn't matter. She nodded at the scaffold. "They kept it oiled." "I noticed." "It hasn't been used in years." "Still oiled." She turned. "Why?" He looked at the rope. "Because they always knew someone else would need it." By mid-morning, the messenger came. A boy. Maybe 12. Pants too short, eyes too wide. He handed her a folded paper and didn't wait for a reply. Just ran. She opened it. 5 words. "He hangs before sundown." "Sheriff." No name, no stamp, just the truth in plain ink. She handed it to the bounty hunter. He didn't flinch. "They won't come themselves." "They don't need to," she said. "They know what you'll do." He folded the note slowly. "And what will I do?" She didn't answer, just walked to the table, picked up the wedding dress, and stuffed it in a satchel. He followed. "You running?" "No." He waited. "I'm trading." She turned. I walked past him, out the door. The gallows stood just behind the courthouse, its wood dark from rain and use. The rope hung neat, loop tied like a waiting mouth. No creak, no sound. She stood at the base of the steps. The new sheriff stepped out from the shade. He looked young, but hollow, like someone had poured power into an empty frame. His badge shone too bright. "Didn't expect you," he said. She raised her chin. "I'm here for him." "You bringing him in?" "I'm trading." His smile was slow and wrong. "You want the rope?" "If it keeps him breathing." The sheriff stepped closer. "That rope was meant for women like you." She didn't blink. "Then it's well aimed." He looked her over. "You think the town forgives?" "I don't care if they do." "You think the gallows care?" "No." He leaned close. "Your father begged." She stared. He laughed. "Didn't tell you that, did he?" She said nothing. He straightened. "You want to take his place?" "I'm not asking." He motioned to a man at the side. Rope keeper, maybe. Silent, rough hands. No badge. "She walks," the sheriff said. "He walks." The man nodded. The sheriff stepped aside. She climbed the steps, one by one. The platform creaked, still oiled. She reached the noose, touched it, fingers firm. The sheriff watched. She pulled the ring from her pocket. "Hold it up. This belonged to someone better." He shrugged. "Everything belongs to someone dead." She slipped the ring onto the noose, let it rest there, then leaned close, and whispered. He didn't catch it. No one did. She stepped back. "Where is he?" she asked. The sheriff waved a hand. "He's free for now." She stared at him. "I'll hold you to that." He grinned. "For as long as you last." She stepped off the platform, down the stairs. The noose swayed behind her. The ring spun once, catching the light, and stopped. She didn't look back. I didn't need to. The whisper had already sunk into the rope, and it would never come out. She walked out of the gallows yard with her spine straight and her mouth shut. The rope hadn't touched her neck, but the words tied there still choked. No one stopped her. No one met her eyes. Not even the sheriff, who stood with his arms crossed under the awning, like he was waiting for dust to settle on his badge. It didn't. The wind picked up as she reached the edge of town, pulling at her sleeves, tugging at something under her ribs she didn't know how to name. She didn't go home. Her boots turned toward the orchard that hadn't borne fruit in 10 years. The trees were black and brittle, the fire that took them long since blamed on lightning. Everyone said that, but no one believed it. The widow's house stood past the tree line, crooked porch. 2 windows, one shutter missing. The other was covered with a curtain stitched in symbols the girl had seen once in a dream. She stepped through the gate, past the chickens that didn't peck, and the cat that watched like it knew everything. The door opened before she knocked. "You came late," the widow said, voice like gravel soaked in honey. "You were expecting me?" "I was expecting someone with your eyes." The girl stepped inside. The room was warm, not cozy, thick, smoky, and smelling of boiled herbs and charred paper. Shelves lined with jars. A stove older than the town itself. On the wall, a photo of a man with his face scratched out and a nail driven through his throat. The widow poured something dark into a cracked mug. "Drink if you want to remember." The girl didn't reach for it. "You knew my father." The widow sat slowly, one eye pale with blindness, the other sharp as a nail. "I did more than know him." "You trusted him?" "I stitched him up more than once, and I lied to him even more." The girl stayed standing. "Why?" The widow shrugged. "Because I was a coward, and he was loud." "Was that enough?" "Back then, it had to be." The girl looked toward the back room. "Is he the reason my mother disappeared?" The widow's hands paused mid-stir. "Not directly, but he knew. He knew, and he let it happen." The girl's voice dropped. "What happened?" The widow leaned in. "Your mother saw too much, asked too many questions, about the preacher, about the cellar, about the boys who vanished after the fire. She wrote letters, told people. She thought the truth meant safety. It didn't. Number it got her buried." The girl's face didn't move. "Under the smokehouse." "You found her." The widow reached under the table, pulled out a tin box. I opened it. Inside, a sealed envelope, edges yellow, wax cracked but unbroken. She placed it on the table like it was something living. The girl didn't reach for it. "She wrote that to your father 12 years ago," the widow said. "Gave it to me when she knew he wouldn't listen. Why not give it to someone else?" "Because no one else would have survived reading it." The girl stared at the envelope. The name was there. Edmund Callow, her father's name. "It's her handwriting," the girl whispered. "I know." What's inside? What she saw. What she heard. What she found in the church cellar before they sealed it shut. They said there was no cellar. They lied. The girl picked up the envelope. Her hands didn't shake this time. "Why now?" The widow met her gaze. "Because the rope didn't take you, and that means you're not meant to die stupid." "She died alone." "She died out loud. They just buried the sound." The girl tucked the letter into her coat. "What about the bounty?" The widow poured more tea. "It was never about gold." "I figured." "It was about silence. Every coin they offered was to keep someone quiet, and when that didn't work, they paid for screams instead." "Who ordered it?" The widow tapped her chest. "Same people who sat in your father's kitchen, drank from your mother's glasses, held you as a baby, and kissed your hair. They gave him the badge. Then I told him how to use it. And he did. The widow's hands clenched. Better than anyone. The girl rose. The envelope felt like weight in her ribs. Do you think reading this changes anything? Number? But it'll change you. That's the same thing. She moved toward the door. The widow called after her. If you burn it, you won't sleep. I haven't in days. If you read it, you'll want to burn the whole town. The girl paused at the threshold. Then I guess I better read fast. The wind slammed the door shut behind her. Inside her coat pocket, the letter pulsed like a second heartbeat. She sat on the back steps with the envelope in her lap, fingers tracing the name like it might change if she touched it right. Edmund Callow, her father's name, burned into the wax, sealed in her mother's hand. The air was thick and still. The barn stood quiet in the dark, its door slightly ajar. A horse stirred once inside. She broke the seal. The paper inside was soft with age, folded twice. The ink faded, but still sharp enough to cut. She opened it slowly. I began to read. To the man who swore he'd keep this town clean. She paused, swallowed. There's blood in the walls. There are voices under the floor. I told you what the preacher's doing. You heard me. You looked me in the eye and said it would stop. But it didn't. And now I've seen the children. I've seen the shoes, the chalk markings, the smell under the chapel. She blinked, looked up. The barn still hadn't moved. You said if I kept talking, I'd end up in a ditch, that my brother would hang for what I started. You said the town can't afford another scandal, not after what happened to the boy with the burned hands. You said a badge only shines when the dirt stays quiet. Her stomach twisted. But this won't stay buried. Not forever. Not even when you torch the cellar and lie to the mothers. I saw the preacher hand you the ledger. I saw your initials next to the children's numbers. You think that book is safe because it's locked in your desk. But someone else knows, and someone else will dig it up. The wind shifted. The horses inside the barn rustled. She kept reading. I wrote this because I'm leaving, not to run, to survive. You won't hang me, Edmund, not for truth. And if you do, if you try, I'll leave something behind, something loud. No signature, just a space, a smudge, like blood, touched the paper and never left. She folded it shut, stared into the dirt. It wasn't her mother's words, it was a man's, the bounty hunter's brother. Her father knew everything, everything. He didn't just stay quiet, he made money from it. He watched boys vanish, saw the ledger fill, and still put on the badge each morning like it meant something clean. She pressed the letter to her chest, then stood, crossed the yard fast, breathing hard. Behind the barn, her knees gave out. She fell to the dirt and vomited. The noise was loud, sharp, final. She stayed on her hands and knees, mouth open, spit stringing from her lips, heart racing like it didn't want to be in her body anymore. A shadow moved. She turned. The bounty hunter stood a few feet away. He didn't speak, didn't move. In his hand, he held the ring, the same one they dug up behind the smokehouse. Her mother's. He held it out to her again. She stared at it, didn't take it. Not yet. I read the letter, she whispered. I know. It wasn't from her. I know. It was your brother. He nodded. You knew my father let it happen. Yes. And you followed me anyway. I followed the letter. Her fingers twitched. She looked back at the dirt. There were children, she said. I know. In the chapel. I know. And the preacher's still walking. His jaw tightened. He is. She stood slowly, took the ring. Hold it, stared at it like it might answer something. My father burned everything, she said, except this. That's why we're still here. She looked at him, eyes glassy, skin pale. I'm going to finish what she started, she said. He nodded. I'm going to find the cellar. I'll help. I don't want help. I'll still help. She slipped the ring into her pocket, wiped her mouth on her sleeve, walked past him toward the barn. Didn't stop, didn't look back. But her words followed her, softer now. He said a badge only shines when the dirt stays quiet. And somewhere under the chapel, the dirt hadn't settled yet. She walked back toward the barn with her shoulders tight and her hands clenched, like she'd carry the whole town's silence if she had to. The ring sat in her coat pocket, a cold little weight against her ribs. Behind her, the bounty hunter hadn't moved. He stood there, with blood dried at his knuckles and something darker behind his eyes. When she reached the barn doors, she didn't open them, just stood there, waiting. He caught up, slowly. She spoke without turning. "You knew the boy, didn't you?" He exhaled once, sharp. "Yeah. The one with the burned hands. He called me brother. Still does." She faced him. "Is he? My blood? Number, then why is he still calling you that?" He looked past her toward the old chapel that sat crooked at the edge of the field. "Because I was the only one who didn't scream when I saw what they did to him." She leaned on the barn wall, arms crossed. "Tell me." He didn't argue, didn't stall, just lowered himself to the ground like it hurt. "It was 12 years ago. Fire started under the preacher's quarters. That's what they said. But it wasn't firewood that burned first. It was the ledger. Someone tried to destroy it. Pages scattered, blood in the margins. My brother, he was one of the boys taken down into the cellar. He saw the floor open, the trap door. He told me later, it didn't creak like wood. It hissed, like it breathed." She didn't blink. The bounty hunter rubbed his thumb across the dirt. "I went in after him, thought I was saving him. I wasn't. I was trying to erase what I'd seen the week before, the night I stood guard outside the door and heard the crying. I didn't move then. I moved after. And the boy. He was tied to a pipe, hands blistered, blackened, not from the fire, from the irons they used to keep him still. They'd written on the walls names, dates, crosses turned upside down, then back again, like they couldn't decide what god they were working for." Her throat went tight. "Why didn't anyone stop it?" He laughed, bitter. "Because your father said it was under control. Because he shook the preacher's hand and said the town needed quiet more than truth. Because when I carried that boy out, I was told to disappear. And my brother, he was told to forget." She stepped closer. "Did he?" "No." "What happened to him?" The bounty hunter looked up at her. "He runs what's left of the ones who remember. They live in the old tunnels now, beneath the mill. He doesn't come up much." "Does he know I'm still digging?" "He knows everything." "Then why hasn't he come?" "Because he's waiting for you to ask." She pulled the ring from her pocket. "You gave this back like it mattered." "It did." "Why?" "Because your mother gave it to my brother before she died." She froze. "You're lying." "I'm not." "She gave it to him, slipped it in his pocket when she kissed his forehead. He never wore it. I just kept it, said it smelled like soap and blood. And you took it from him. He gave it to me the day he stopped speaking above ground." Her voice was cold now. "Why are you here?" "Because I can still speak, and because you opened the letter." They stood in silence. The wind picked up. Somewhere a bell rang once, not from the chapel, but deeper, like metal in a cave. She turned her face. "I want to see him." "You sure?" "No." "But you will." She stepped past him, opened the barn door. The horses stirred, uneasy. She checked the water, the feed, then walked back out with the saddle over her arm. He raised an eyebrow. "You're going now?" "If I wait, I won't." "You're not ready." "I wasn't ready when I found the bones." He said nothing more. They worked together in silence, saddling the mare. Her hands moved fast, practiced. He's slower, careful. The sky lightened. She looked east and stopped. A shape moved toward them through the mist. A horse. No rider. Its reins dragged. Its mouth foamed. One rear hoof bent wrong and caught in the stirrup. A child's red shoe, still tied, still clean. The horse stood trembling, ribs showing through foam-laced flanks, its flared nostrils sucking wind like it was drowning in the air. The red shoe hung from the stirrup, swaying. The girl moved first, crossing the yard fast, her boots silent over packed dirt. She reached up, unhooked the shoe. It was small, too small for any of the living children in town. She didn't speak, didn't ask who it belonged to. She already knew the answer would come later, and it would come cruel. The bounty hunter watched from the porch. "That's a warning," he said. "No," she replied. "That's a door." They waited for dark. Not long. The town slept early now. Lights out, curtains drawn. Everyone is listening for the wrong footstep. The chapel sat hollow, its steeple leaning toward the west, like even God had shifted his weight away. The girl carried a lantern. He carried a crowbar. They didn't knock. Inside, the pews were dusted with silence. The altar still stained from the body dragged weeks before. The blood hadn't been cleaned, just dried. The girl moved past it, toward the pulpit. Behind it, a carpet. Old, frayed, pulled at the corners like someone had tried to lift it and stopped halfway. She grabbed the edge, yanked. The boards beneath were different, darker, scratched, worn smooth in places, splintered in others. She tapped her boot against them. A hollow thud answered back. The bounty hunter knelt, ran his hand along the edges. Here, he pried. Wood creaked, then cracked. The floor gave way. A square of air opened up. A trap door. No hinges, just a panel fit to drop. He pulled it wide. A ladder led down. The smell hit first. Lye and something older. They looked at each other. Then she descended first. The cellar wasn't deep, maybe 10 feet, but it felt like a wound. The walls were lined with shelves, books, stacks of them, bound in leather, numbered, tagged. She stepped to one, ran her finger across the spine. No title, just initials. EC 1 to 10, RA 4 to 7 TL 2 to 3. She opened one. Photos, children, not smiling. Some with eyes scratched out, some with hands missing. Notes in the margins, measurements, dates, temperatures. She closed it, stepped back. Chains hung from the far wall, not new. Rusted through in places, still bolted deep. A cot beside them, blood-stained. The bounty hunter lit a second lantern. It glowed low and warm, casting halos across the stone. She found a table pushed into the corner, surgical tools. A ledger opens on top. The writing there was fresh. "Someone's still coming here," she whispered. He didn't answer. She picked up the ledger. The last entry. The red shoe returned. Subject number 31 missing. The door must be resealed. She swallowed. "Subject," she said. They were subjects. He nodded. To someone. Her hands shook. She pressed them flat to the table. "He knew. Your father helped build this. He told me to stay away from the pulpit, said it wasn't mine to touch. And you listened?" "Not anymore." She walked into the room again, found a chest. I opened it. Inside, dozens of collars, small, labeled with dates, each one burned with a number. She counted. 31. The last one was still warm. The bounty hunter crouched near the ladder. "We need to go." She didn't move. "We need to take something. Proof." She grabbed a book. The ledger. The last collar. He held the lantern high. She stepped onto the first rung. He followed. They reached the top. The trap door is still open, but the chapel was dark now. Too dark. She climbed out. The moment her boots hit the floor, the door slammed shut. Wood crashed down. The bounty hunter slammed his shoulder into it. It didn't budge. She screamed. Louder than before. Boots pounded above them. One set. Then silence. He hit the trap door again. "We're locked in." Her voice cracked. "They knew we were coming." The cellar held still, and above them the chapel began to breathe. The cellar pressed in close. The air had shifted. Not thicker, just sharper. The kind of air that knew secrets and waited. The trap door above them didn't rattle again. Whoever sealed it had walked away. Sure, they'd be left with the ghosts. The girl stood near the shelves, her breath catching in short, shallow bursts. The collar still hung from her fingers. The number burned into the leather read 31. She set it down. "They locked us in," she said. "They did." She turned toward him. "Who?" He didn't lie. "The sheriff." Her voice dropped. "The new one." He nodded once. "He was a boy when it started. They kept him down here too. But he didn't fight. He followed orders, watched, learned." She sat on the cot. "So why put a badge on someone like that?" "Because someone like that doesn't ask questions, just points and shoots." She looked at the trapdoor. "So we die down here." "No." "You sound sure." "I've been here before." She looked at him. "What?" His face didn't change. "When I was 15. They brought me in during the second wave. After the preacher started selecting, said I had the right kind of silence in my eyes." She stared. "You were a subject." "I was number 10. She swallowed hard. "You escaped." "I ran when the fire started. Someone else set it. I still don't know who. The smoke covered my trail. The ones who stayed, they didn't come back out." She whispered. "My mother found you." "She did. And then they killed her." His eyes darkened. "Not right away. They let her live just long enough to feel safe. Then they took her from behind the smokehouse. Left pieces for your father to bury." The girl stood slowly, steadying herself on the edge of the shelf. "And the bounty. It wasn't about justice. It wasn't for the men I killed. It was to survive this. For knowing. For remembering. She crossed the room, grabbed one of the carved books, and opened it again. Inside, photographs, small hands, marked wrists, numbered backs. It was all cataloged, like someone thought the horror meant something if it was documented. You carried this all this time? He didn't answer. She set the book down, pulled out her knife, small, sharp. Come here. He stepped closer. She held out her hand. Show me where they marked you. He hesitated, then pulled up his left sleeve, near the bicep, a faint brand, faded, but still legible. X10. She touched it. How many made it out? He shook his head. Just me and one other. Your brother. He nodded. She stepped back. Her mouth opened like she might say something else, but nothing came. Instead, she turned toward the wall, found a gap between two stone bricks about waist high, pulled the knife again. I started carving. He watched. Slowly, the letters took shape. Edmund Callow. She paused, breathed deep, then carved again. Lyra Callow. His voice was soft. What are you doing? Writing the names of the ones who looked away. You weren't one of them. I was his daughter. That doesn't mean you knew. Number, but it means I carry it now. She stepped back. Blood beaded on her thumb from the blade. You think that wall will remember? He asked. She looked at the carving. Number, but maybe I will. He walked to the shelves, picked up one of the older books, hold it like something sacred and vile. When I left this place, he said, I swore I'd never speak of it again. Thought that'd keep it buried, but it didn't, she said. Number it just festered. They heard footsteps above, faint, then nothing. He looked up. They'll come back. And when will they do? She asked. He smiled without warmth. We'll tell them what the bounty was really for. She wiped her knife clean, then placed it beside the collar. She pressed her palm against the wall over the names she carved. I'm not the girl who didn't flinch anymore, she whispered. No, he said. You're the one who stayed. And the seller, for the first time in years, held a name that wasn't afraid to speak. The names were still wet on the wall. Blood caught in the grooves, dried fast in the cold air. She pressed her hand to it one last time, then stepped back. The bounty hunter watched her, the book still tucked under his arm. The cellar around them no longer felt like a grave. It felt like testimony. Above them, a sound. Wood creaking. Then a soft scuffle. Then footsteps. Fast. Leaving. He moved to the trapdoor, pressed his palm flat. They're gone. She didn't ask how he knew. He braced his shoulder, pushed hard. Nothing. She joined him. One more time. Together, they shoved. The door cracked, groaned, then gave way. Dust spilled in. The air rushed down. Moonlight sliced across the cellar floor. He climbed first, reached down, pulled her up. They stood in the chapel, breathing hard. It was empty, but the air wasn't still. It held the charge of something unfinished. She looked around. They left it open on purpose. He nodded. Wanted to see if we'd scream. She picked up her lantern from the pew where she'd dropped it before the descent. Still warm, still lit. The rope from the gallows sat on the altar, coiled, waiting. She walked to it, lifted it. It smelled of oil and smoke. She looped it once, then again, tied it to her belt. He watched. Said nothing. They want to hang someone, she said. Let them try. They left through the front doors. The night was quiet, but the town was watching, behind curtains, from porches. Breath held. She didn't flinch. At the center of the square, she turned, took the book from his hands. Hold it up. This is what's buried, she called out. This is what your sheriff protects. No one moved. She opened the ledger, read one name, then another, then another. Still, no one stepped forward, but no one walked away either. The silence grew teeth. He stepped beside her, said nothing. She read two more names, then closed the book. If you want to stop me, she said, you know where I sleep. She turned. I walked. He followed. Back home, she stripped the wedding dress from the table, threw it into the stove, lit the flame. The cloth caught fast, curling, blackening. The scent of smoke and earth filled the room. He sat in the corner chair, her father's old seat, worn at the arms, wood smooth from years of gripping. She poured water, set it beside him, then walked out the front door, into the night, stars overhead, clear, unbothered. She stepped off the porch, crossed the yard, stopped near the barn where the dirt still showed the shape of Curtis's shallow grave. She knelt, dug a hole with her hands, not deep, just enough, pulled the collar from her coat, the one marked 31, laid it in the ground, covered it, pressed the soil flat, then stood. Wind pulled at her coat. The rope on her hip swung once. Behind her, the house was still. Inside, the bounty hunter sat slumped in the chair, hat tipped forward, arms loose, breathing even. She didn't go back in. I didn't need to. She looked at the sky, at the stars, at nothing, and whispered soft, "You're safe now." The morning came gray and long, not storm gray, just the color things turn when a town doesn't know what to do next. She stood in the doorway with a mug in her hand, watching the road that stayed empty. Behind her, the bounty hunter stirred in the old chair. He hadn't spoken since waking, just sat still with the book on his lap, reading the same page like it might change if he stared long enough. She hadn't touched the ledger again. It was hers now, but not for reading. Not yet. Outside, the town creaked like an old barn. People had seen her walk back from the chapel, had seen the rope on her hip and the scorch marks in her coat. No one said anything. Not yet, but the silence felt heavier, tighter. She turned from the window and walked to the table, unfolded an old map, one her father used to keep rolled in the bottom drawer. It had no borders, no roads, just hand-drawn markings, faint and wrinkled, circles, initials, a line of red ink that cut across the north ridge and ended in an X. She pulled out the carving knife again. At the edge of the paper, she started writing. Names, one by one. The ones from the book. The ones the widow remembered. The ones carved on the collars. Each name got a mark. Each mark got a date, if she had it. The bounty hunter watched her in silence. "Are you drawing a map?" he asked. "No." "Then what is it?" "A reckoning." She kept writing. "Someone's going to come for that," he said. "You're building a fire and the wind's changing." "I hope they come." He leaned back. "You really want a war?" "I want them to admit it happened." "They won't." "I know." She finished the last name and set the pen down, then turned the paper, wrote one more. Lyra Callow. Below it, she added a circle. Not red, not black, just pencil. He stood, stretched, walked over to her side. I looked down. "That one's not dead," he said. "I know." She folded the map, stuffed it in her coat. "Where are you going?" he asked. "To the ridge." "Alone?" She looked up. "You coming?" He thought about it, then nodded. They rode out past the edge of town, past the orchard, past the place where the creek dried up and the bridge broke in half and no one bothered fixing it. The horse with the red shoe had been tied to the fence. Still spooked, still silent. She left the shoe in the dirt. They reached the ridge by noon. The old house was still there, the one from the photograph, the one with the broken cross above the door. It leaned hard to the right, roof caved, windows open like mouths too tired to scream anymore. She dismounted. I walked straight up. He stayed behind her, watching the fields. Inside the house, the air was cold, old. She pushed past the broken door, stepped over glass and bones and paper. There, in the far corner, was the trapdoor. Again, she knelt, pried it open. Below, nothing but dirt and ash. The cellar had collapsed. She turned to him. They already came. Burned it clean. Number just buried it again. She stepped down anyway, just to be sure. The ground was cracked, charred. She knelt, dug with her hands. Nothing. Then her fingers hit metal. She pulled. A box. Small, rusted shut. She looked up. "Help me." He climbed down, took it from her, broke the latch. Inside, hair ribbons, one doll's shoe, a torn page from a hymn book, and a photograph, this time not scratched. 4 children, all numbered, all looking straight at the lens. One of them was the new sheriff. She didn't speak, just stared, then folded the photo, pocketed it. The hymn page crumbled in her hand. Outside, wind moved through the broken cross above the door, making a sound that didn't belong to the weather. He looked at her. "We need to move." "Not yet." She turned back to the box, took out the doll's shoe, placed it beside the trapdoor. No prayer, no words, just a mark, a line on the map. They didn't speak again until they reached the horses. He mounted first. She stared at the ridge once more, then whispered, "We're not done." He said, "We'll never be." She smiled, just a little, and they rode into the wind.